All right. Welcome, Gina Trimarco, to the Big Skip Energy Podcast.
Whoo! It's like deja vu. I feel like I've been here before.
It is deja vu all over again. Now, guys, I want to tell you this. Gina's been a good sport. We did this recording a while back. It's probably been, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And I went to go edit it, and the sound was completely unusable. And I'm not going to blame that on Gina. I'm going to take responsibility for that myself,
It's
even though I really
about
know it
time you
was her
take.
fault.
Yeah, it's about
What?
time you take responsibility.
I know. I need to do that, don't I? So we are back and better than ever. Here
Better
we
than
are.
ever. It's even juicier.
It's even juicier. That's right. The steak is even juicier.
Mm-hmm.
And Gina, you have the dubious honor of being the first video recorded podcast of my show. How's that feel?
That feels so special.
Oh, I know you feel special. I know you do. So I appreciate you coming back on.
Sure.
So tell me a little bit about you for those of my listeners that don't know you. I have my own rendition of this tale, but I'd like you to give them
it's
your
better.
first.
Yeah, let's tell my version because your version is just gonna be a hot mess. So
For sure.
I could do my own storytelling. Thank you very much. Gina Trimarco, master sales trainer at Sales Gravy and host and producer of the Women Your Mother Warns You About podcast. Prior to joining Sales Gravy, I had my own sales training and leadership training company, as well as an improv comedy theater in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for 12 years before, everything hit the fan. Can we swear here? Like, how does that work?
Yes, this is not a family-friendly show. So
okay, I didn't think so, but I never know. I never know.
So you can say the shit hit the fan.
Yeah, the shit hit the fan. But I've got an extensive background in improv and how to use that from an agility standpoint in the sales arena. And prior to that
standpoint, huh?
Yeah, it's all about agility, man. You got to be able to move quickly. And
right.
Originally from Chicago, born and raised there. People like to know a little bit about my family background.
I was about to ask you, please tell the story of how you got into sales and how you learned this.
I got into sales, my first sales job, I believe, and I'm in the middle of writing the book about it, was working in flea markets with my dad, who may or may have not been doing things always legally. So lots of things fell off the back of trucks that we then sold at the flea market.
Fell right off. Huh?
Yeah, it just fell right off. And so sales has been in my blood for a really long time, from my early childhood. And yeah, that's it in a quick summary. Read it in the book. It's all in the
exactly.
book.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the abstract for the book.
My pleasure.
Do you have a title for this book yet that you can share?
It's actually two books that are being written simultaneously.
Oh, we're volumes in, huh? Yeah. I see.
There's kind of a crazy approach to this. The sales book is Sell Like a Child, which goes back to starting my sales career as a child, but also is very much improv based. And the other book titles are currently pending. Right now, the working title is The Reversible Struggle.
Okay. Can you tell me anything about that or not?
The Reversible Struggle is more of the personal motivational book. How do we get beyond the mindset of the struggle is real?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the struggle is reversible, therefore the reversible struggle. So it's like, how do you overcome the things? And sometimes you think, I thought this for the longest time, that my struggles are no big deal. They made me who I am. And then every time I go speak at an event and I share a story of a struggle I overcame, people are like, oh my gosh, that was so inspiring. And I'm like, really? It's no big deal to me. And that was an aha for me from a storytelling perspective. I know you want to talk about storytelling today, that your story matters, right? So somebody's watching you and somebody's inspired by your story.
That's what makes us who we are. I mean,
exactly. And so it's really important for everybody to pay attention to, don't downplay your stories, because while they don't feel like a lot to you, somebody's inspired by the story.
Yeah. And so, okay, this is a reference that very few people will get, but I never thought I'd be bringing up on my show. There's a part of the movie in Star Trek Five. All
Jesus.
right. Oh, I know. Yeah, yeah, we're going deep down into the
I'm
movie
not a Trekkie. I mean,
database
my
here.
husband got me into Star Wars, but Trekking is not
Well,
mine.
well, I'm a Star Wars person, as
Yeah,
you can see
I can
behind me.
tell.
But yeah, yeah. So this is, but my dad was a big Star Trek guy, and he passed a little bit of that on to me. I'm definitely more of a Star Wars guy. Anyway, so the whole premise of that movie is getting rid of your pain, and the bad guy in that movie gets followers by taking away their pain, and they feel so relieved, and they think he's like, oh, he's almost like a messiah, that kind of thing. And William Shatner, Captain Kirk in the movie, refuses to. He said, the pain makes us who we are. I need my pain. And I think there's something to that, because your struggles, your stories, that's what makes us who we are. And that's how we can, that's one of the many, many parts of our individualism. And so that if you
Yeah.
could bring that forward, like you just said, I think that's what really inspires people. Also makes you relatable. So,
Exactly, because people hate perfect. People don't they don't they the bullshit meter goes off when they feel
mhm.
like when there are some people out there like on LinkedIn who they carry off this like perfect lifestyle. How do I put this? Like they're
There are great
showing,
memes about that.
right? They're showing their struggles, but then they're like really blowing it out of the water how
Mhm.
amazing they are because of those struggles, which then almost makes it feel unreal. I don't know how
A
to
little
describe it.
disingenuous.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know how to really describe it. It's almost like they've exaggerated their
Mhm.
struggles to turn them into these,
Well,
victories. I don't know.
authenticity in social media is a completely different topic. We could spend hours on that alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But speaking of LinkedIn, I don't know if you've gotten this lately. Of course, we all get bombarded with people in their bad sales pitches in our LinkedIn messages. But have you experienced getting catfished yet
Like by men?
by
Like what
by
do you
men or fake companies?
I
Um,
I have not been catfished by fake companies. I do get so much bullshit uh pitch slaps for
yeah,
sure. But definitely I've seen an increase of men trying to hit on me. Like,
yeah,
"Hello dear, you are so beautiful." And I'm like, first of all, nobody says dear. So
yeah,
that's the
dear.
first
Yeah.
sign that you've there's a problem here.
Yes, dear. Yes. So no, I mean it's just anyway. That's just crazy. LinkedIn's funny sometimes. Anyway,
Mhm.
but okay, so that's your background. Those are your books. Let's talk a little bit about your show. Talk to me about the woman your mother warned you about, because I have been listening to this show for not its entirety, but for the last 2 or 3 years. It's really good. I like it a
Well,
lot.
thank you. What do you like about it?
Oh, well, besides the charming, charismatic, host that is Gina Trimarco. So, I like the variety of guests. I like the questions. It's always a good interaction. You do a good job of connecting to your guests, in my opinion. So, and once you have that connection, it's easier to bring out the better or the best information from them possible. So, I like that
Thanks.
a lot. Yep, you've had a couple of co-hosts that have both been. It's two, right?
Yeah,
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 they've both been really good. I've enjoyed them both, different styles, and they seem to complement you well. And going forward, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do.
yeah. Thanks for that. I think that's probably like my producer. I like to lean on his feedback because, right, he's editing the show, and that's one of the things he has given me feedback on, that he feels like I do a really good job of connecting
Yeah.
and bringing things out of when I do have a guest.
Mm.
And we had this conversation recently because, right, I have had two co-hosts. Susanna recently departed, and
Hmm.
so my producer's like, now what? Like, what? And like, I think he was more panicked than I was, and I'm like, I don't know. It's pretty simple.
You could solo the show.
I'm gonna run solo. I'm like, it's
Yeah, of
nothing. It's not a slight to my previous co-host. Like
course
when the
not.
show started, we're in our fifth season, so we've run four salad years.
Hmm.
The first 3 years was with Rachel Pitts, who is going
Hmm.
to come back occasionally. So she is going to make her
You have an episode coming out with her, right?
Yeah, there's an episode coming out with her, and she's going to return on an occasional basis. Her departure was because just things changed and priorities changed and where she was in her career changed, and
Yeah.
it just didn't make the most sense, because you get to a point where in life of like, okay, what can I take off my plate because what I'm doing might not be serving me in the moment. And when she and I started the show back in 2000, we launched January 2019, but the inception was in 2018. The whole goal of the show was really about talking about how do we balance everything that we're doing as women. And it
Hmm.
came like when we were trying to come up with a show title, we came up with The Women Your Mother Warned You About because we felt that we were different from people as far as we did things
Hmm.
differently, and people kind of turned their nose to it or talked about us or looked down on us, and we're like, you know what, we're over it, we're over that.
Hmm.
We do things differently and maybe we go against the status quo. And so, if you don't like that about us, we're done worrying about what you think. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the concept of the show, of like, how do we just stand in our voice and our power of like, this is who we are, this is how we do things. If you don't like it, that's okay. If you like it, even better. Because some people said, aren't you worried that you're going to scare off certain clients? And I'm like, God, I hope so. Right? Because
Yeah.
because then to the opposite, right? That's the negative attitude about it, or the pessimistic way of looking at it. Why not look at, I might attract better clients. I might attract the people that I actually want to be in my sphere. And I'm
Hmm.
going to repel the rest. So the concept of the show started of like, how are we women in sales balancing personal and business and doing all the things and being treated a little bit differently than men? I think we are. But we also didn't want to be a show that was just about women for women. It was just like, we're just these
Right.
two
And it's definitely
brash,
not. I mean, it covers the
yeah,
gamut.
we're just these two brashy women kind of thing. And then she had to leave, and then
Brash? No.
no, brashy and sassy. And then Rachel had to leave. Susanna joined, which gave it a completely different flavor, having
Hmm.
that British wit and perspective, and that put the show in a completely different direction. And life kind of got in her way, and so now
Yep.
I'm like,
It happens.
I had a show before this show called The Pivotal Leader, which is kind of just sitting out there in hiatus, but that was my first show that I ran for a couple years, and I ran that show alone with guests. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to running the show with guests, and every now and
Hmm.
then I do a solo episode. So I'm really excited. We should always be evolving and changing
Oh,
what
for
we're
sure.
doing. And I think that was another reason why we went with The Women Your Mother Warns You About title, because that title can just kind of flex as we need it to flex. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where we are.
One of the things I really liked about it, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
It's okay.
was that along with that title, I think it's good because you, as well as as a co-host you've had on there, and frankly, along with your guests, I mean, these are people that are not cookie cutter people. They all bring something different. They're not quote unquote vanilla style folks, and those are usually the most interesting ones.
And isn't that what you want, right? Because
Yeah.
we hear the kind of the same stuff all the time. Sales is sales is sales,
Hmm.
honestly. I think we all just do it a little bit differently. And this is the advice I give to my clients that I coach and train. Some clients get really overwhelmed with like, well, this person says do this, and Jeb says do that, and Anthony says do that, and Victor says do that, and what should I be doing? And I'm like, you should be doing what works for
What works for
you.
you?
What
That's
is your
right.
style? The things that are out there by these brilliant sales thought leaders, right? Take that, because those are their experiences of what worked
Yeah.
for them. Take it and then modify it, adapt it to what works for you.
Yeah, that's why you've got to expose yourself to so many more things. I mean, it's just like education. You get exposed to a lot of different subjects. You pick and you take different
Exactly.
takeaways from different things, and
Exactly.
that's how you end up being who you are. You
Hmm.
know, yeah, sell like you, like Jeff Bajorek says. So,
I love me some Jeff.
yeah.
Jeff doesn't know, but I'm gonna be bringing him back too.
Oh, nice, nice. I'm still,
Maybe one
I'm
day
still
I'll bring.
waiting. I'm still waiting
Maybe
on.
one day I'll bring you.
Maybe I don't know. I'm
Could
just still
happen.
waiting. It could, I'll hold my breath. But
I'll have my assistant call you.
oh my God. So
I
yeah.
don't have an assistant.
So anyway, guys, the show Women Your Mother Warned You About, check it out. It's really good. Good episodes. One day you'll see me on there. That'll be the highest rated episode ever. So
We'll see.
so all right, so let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about 2023. Now, when we had originally recorded this, we started talking about some planning things and best practices maybe for 2023 if you're in sales, that kind of thing. And even though, as of the recording date of this, the last day of the month in January, so it's January 31st, I think the time is still really good to either create your annual planning or revise it or be sure you keep going with it. Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing out there as far as best practices for making this year a success, despite the bizarre world that we're in right now.
Yeah. All of the above of what you said. I as far as like what I'm seeing across
Yeah.
the board. Now, I know I took a different approach last year. I know I say different approach. We just fall out of good habits sometimes, and I hadn't been in a good habit of like I'm great at coaching people on this. I suck at doing it for myself,
Are you though?
right?
Are you?
I am great at coaching it.
You are great at
So
coaching.
so setting, like getting ahead of the curve every year. Now, when I used to coach a lot of entrepreneurs in particular, like we would get together as a collective group, as a mastermind every October and start working on what's the plan for next year. So that when January 1st hits, well, let's say January 2nd, because people like you might be hungover, but on January 2nd, right, are you ready to go? Because what happens is that we see like every time you hear someone say, "Oh, we're gonna wait till January to pull the trigger on this." Well, when they say we're waiting till January, in my opinion, it means February.
Yeah.
Because by the time they roll back in from the holidays and they get caught up on their email and they're waiting through some budget process, yada, 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 it's the third week of January. And now you're trying to get on their calendar. And now you're trying to get them to execute. And next thing you know, 6 weeks of the year has gone by.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that's the normal pattern, in my opinion. Break the pattern.
I don't think that's opinion, Gina. I think that's fact. I mean,
that's what I
have
experienced.
Yeah, you see it across industries. I mean, look at mine, banking and mortgage. I mean, you've got the New Year's holiday. You've got other bank holidays in January and in February. I mean, you've got every reason under the sun to postpone things. Banking processes are tough and tricky.
Yeah.
You got every reason in the world. If you don't start early, then you started late. There is no one time.
And so that was sort of what I went into it, last year, when we looked at some of my numbers too. Jeb said something about like, oh, the wheels fell off for you at the end of the year. Maybe my numbers weren't as strong at the end of 2022, but my numbers going into 2023, in my opinion, stronger than they were the last 2 years, because my head was literally down from August to beginning of December. Like my goal was I am going to make shit happen before people disappear mid-December. So I rolled into January like a wrecking ball.
Bat out of hell.
There we go. Yeah, because I was on the road half of January.
Yeah.
I had business on the book. January is my best month so far for the quarter. But that's because I have put my head down and started thinking about how am I gonna start the year strongly, given everything everybody's talking about, like woe is me, the sky is falling, layoffs and economy and recession, blah 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 blah. Let's use that as an excuse. But maybe you didn't do that. Maybe you didn't do that, and here you are, whatever this is, February-ish maybe, and you're like, what do I do now? It's sort of like get back up. If you've fallen off the bike, get back on the bike. If you didn't have a plan, create the plan. If the plan's not working, ask yourself why the plan's not working. Tweak the plan. At the end of the day, prospecting matters.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. What are you doing every single day right now to make stuff happen. I've been chasing down some stuff from last year that I could have walked away from. I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm like, I am determined to get into this one particular company that was a lead from a trade show last year. And people have quit, hands have changed, and I could have walked away, but I'm like, I've stayed on it. And now I got the top guy's information.
Yeah, persistence pays off.
Exactly. So you just have to keep moving and keep doing and keep prospecting, and that's how you have to schedule your day. If you don't have a plan, just stop what you're doing after you listen to this episode and create a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't know how to create a plan,
you can call me.
Maybe they can call Gina or me or us together. Let's do a conference call.
Me first.
Yeah, sure.
say you heard it on the Big Skip Energy podcast.
That's right.
I'll give you a special.
You'll extend your condolences to them. So
yeah.
All right. So let's focus, or I guess shift it to the people that started a plan first of the year and are kind of getting off the rails. What are the most common reasons you see for people dropping off? And B, what are the most common ways you see folks get back on track?
Okay. Common reasons why people fall off. It's like any January. Let's think like you make resolutions. Like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out and I'm going to eat better. And you're like so excited, and you're using the beginning of the year as your motivation to do it. I'm not one into resolutions, for one, because I think it's like, if you have to like wait every year until January 1st to like do good things, you're setting yourself up for failure. If you stay consistent with, I'm going to fail, get back up and do it again. I'm going to fail, get back up and do it again, I think you have a better chance. So I think people go into it with this energy of what they're going to do, and then they get downtrodden by things not working. So if you think about what we just talked about earlier, you come into the new year and you can't get a hold of anybody. And all the deals that you thought were going to happen because people said, call us in January, and no one's returning your calls. And that starts to work on your morale and your self-esteem and your confidence. You're like, I can't get through to anybody. And it's not that they don't want to work with you necessarily. They're all in the same boat of they disappeared for 2 weeks and they're trying to catch up in January. So don't think that they're no longer interested. They're just all practicing the same bad habits you are. And I speak for myself too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So don't give up on it. Part 2 of the question, just keep going. Keep calling, keep reaching out, keep being persistent. Look at it as, this is the goal you set for yourself. Are you just going to abandon it altogether? Right.
Yeah.
Do things like, it's a mindset issue. This is a mindset game. Like, what are you doing to have a good mindset? Like, part of my morning routine is get up, meditate, thank God. Like, I do it. Like, I pray, I meditate, I journal. I find things to be grateful for. I write those down. Like, what do you do?
Where am I in that book, by the way?
Every day I thank God for Skip.
I know you do. Do.
Yep.
Yeah. You're gonna get struck by lightning here in a second, by the way.
Exactly. So as far as like what you can do to put the wheels back on, stop crying and complaining and just do it.
Yeah. It's like the famous Rocky quote, it's not how hard you hit that matters. It's how many times you can get hit and keep going forward. That's how you build champions.
Well, I mean, it's about building a resilience. So I think people who fail miserably don't know how to fail happily. Oh, I just made that shit up, right? So if we talk a little bit about my improv world, we are trained as improv performers to fail on purpose. We're trained to like not get it right. We're trained to like put ourselves out there and have a chance that it doesn't work and the audience doesn't think it's funny. And actually, I think why it works so well for improvisers is because in improv comedy, failure is actually funny. We actually get rewarded for failure in improv. Boy, I've never actually said that. I need to put that in the book.
See, you got two things already, thanks to me.
What was the other one? I already forgot.
It's about failing happily.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really about failing happily. Like, like when you fail, be like, "Yay, this was awesome. What can come of this failure?" Sometimes I like put myself in those positions because maybe I'm stalled and don't know what to do. So I'm just going to do something versus nothing, knowing that the something I'm going to do may not work, but I will learn something from it. So it's better to fail happily.
Fail happily. There it is. TM. Trademark that sucker.
Yep. Maybe that's the name of the book. Fail happily.
So, talk to me about improv. You brought that up a second ago.
See how I did that?
Yeah, that's a fine segue for me. Thank you for guiding me down the path of my show.
I'm sorry, I'm the guest, not the host.
Oh, right, yes. Well, see, you're so used to being the host, not the guest. I'm just so used to just being the host, never a guest.
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
How did you get involved in improv, and what is it about that you find so appealing?
Being from Chicago, right? Chicago is almost synonymous with improv. We have Second City. So growing up as a teenager, I went to Second City shows. It was always just, something you did, but it never really dawned on me to do anything with that. And while I was in college, I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this, but I I started as an accounting major.
Okay. That's funny.
It's funny for so many reasons. Like, for one, I suck at math. Like, I can't even divide a group properly when I'm doing training in person. Like, I'm like, okay, count off my twos. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Right. I didn't want 2 groups. I wanted 7 group. Okay, so I'm not good at math, but I started out as an accounting major to appease my dad. One of the only kids in the entire extended family to go to college, and he's like, be an accountant, you'll make money. That's what he thought. I think secretly he wanted me to like launder money, I don't know, for his mob stuff. I don't know.
Well, hey, whatever pays the bills. Either way, you were going to fail at it, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So I failed at accounting, and what I failed at was like math, and there was a math course that this is probably another sales moment. I got to put this in the book. I literally went to the professor and I'm like, listen, I need to pass this class to take the next math class to continue my major. I'm like, what do we need to do here? And I was also motivated by the fact that I had to pay for school out of my pocket because I couldn't get financial aid. That's a whole nother story. And I'm like, I cannot retake this class. I can't financially afford it. Like, how do I pass this class with a D? And he's like, okay, I'll give you a pop quiz. And he literally gave me a pop quiz to get me to pass the class. And then I'm like, this whole thing is bullshit. I can't do this. And I'm like, I cannot continue on in this major. And I went home having like a midlife crisis after a freshman year. And so I started looking around. I'm like, what would give me joy and passion? I'd always been in the arts and always performing. And so I started looking for other colleges. And I had a crush on a guy who was actually going to be transferring to a school in Chicago and going to be in film. And I'm like, I really like TV and film. And so I started looking around. I end up at, and it's a long story, but it's an important story. I end up at Columbia School of Broadcasting. Okay. Like, it's one of those schools that was like on the back of a book of matches.
Nice.
For anybody who remembers what matches are. So it was like a vocational school, but I didn't know that at the time. I'm like, I went there and they have studios and you could have a career in radio and television. I'm like, maybe I should do this. And I'm like, maybe this is what I should be doing. And I met with the counselor, who is really a sales guy, right? And he shuts the door and he goes, you do not want to go here. I was like, what? I'm like 19 years old. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you do not want to go here. Do not go here. He's like, go do something else, but do not go here. It's like, go take an improv class at Second City. I'm like, what? Like, literally, I'm like, okay. And he was taking classes, and I want to say he was maybe 8 or 9 years older than me. I reached out
Mm-hmm.
to him recently. Like, we're connected on Facebook, but
Yeah.
I talk about him in the book because he had pushed me to go take classes. So I went to take classes, and that was my first aha about what improv was. Like,
Okay.
I found my creative side. I was surrounded by people 10, 15, 20 years older than me. I was the youngest one in my class. I was surrounded by advertising people from the top ad agencies in Chicago. And it just, my eyes opened. I had great instructors who were like, you're so creative, you're this, you're that, leverage that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to change my major. Right. It was that whole yes and concept we teach. And I changed my major to journalism. So I went back to that school, changed my major to journalism. And through that year, I drove home every weekend to Chicago, like 70 miles away from where I was
Mm.
going to college, to take improv classes every weekend and to work. So I was a cocktail waitress, putting myself through college, taking improv classes, journalism major, 8 a.m. classes. And I'm like, you know what? And the more I spent time around those people in the ad agencies, I realized I needed to be in the heart of Chicago
Mm.
to really forge a career. I
Yeah.
needed to be close to television and radio stations. And so I I ultimately, because of improv, transferred to Paul University, where I was able to like literally score all kinds of internships in radio and television. And improv is actually what brought me to that, is the mindset of improv, the creativity of improv.
Mm-hmm.
um there's a part of me that wanted to be an actress. That wasn't really happening for a variety of reasons. And then I kind of I was told I was too ethnic looking. This was
Too
crazy.
ethnic looking.
Yeah, look at where we are today. So
Yeah.
you want to talk about feeling discriminated against? I'm like,
So,
are
of
you?
course, this was back in 1954. So,
Exactly. I wasn't
yeah.
blonde and tiny. So I put improv on the back burner for a while, and then I came to South Carolina to take over a company, and I was so burnt out. And I'm like, I'm
Right.
gonna take an improv class to like readjust my attitude, because it was
Okay.
really good for that, which I would
Mm-hmm.
recommend for you. Really good for readjusting attitude, and
Are you
nobody knew what
saying
it.
I've got a bad attitude?
No, no, not you.
Okay.
I'm
Sorry.
kidding.
Sorry. Continue. Continue.
Nobody knew what improv was in my town, which depressed me even more. And then someone said, why don't you start your own thing?"
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, yes, and so I started it accidentally in 2008, and then remember 2008.
Something happened back
Remember, yeah,
then.
something
Yeah.
happened in 2008, and everything crashed, and I lost my job 1 week before my first class that I was going to teach. Like,
Nice.
and I had this marketing background. Like, improv had really opened me up to, like, I was on a marketing director trajectory, and so I was able to create a website, have marketing in place, and do all of that. I knew how to do PR. I had a PR background. I got on all the television shows. I got in front of newspaper people and got all this media out there and publicity, and got people into the class, and then lost my job. And I'm like, okay, here I am.
Here we are. Now what?
And that was it. That was
All
it.
right.
And that was my life for 13 years after that.
Very cool. See, there you go.
How
It
do you like that?
all comes around. Oh, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I like even more about it
Hmm.
is that it gave you the opportunity to create a class based on knowing what to say when you don't know what to say.
Ah, yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that,
Yeah.
please.
One of my signature courses at Sales Gravy, what to say when you don't know what to say. Um, I can't remember. I think Jeb and I fight over the title of it, like, because
Mm.
when we were trying to come up with the title for it, I'm like, it's like a class for like when you don't know what to say. It was like, that's the name of it. What to say when you don't know what to say. And so it's taking really the foundation of it is the yes and of
Hmm.
how do we get comfortable when we don't know what to say next. And so we have a tendency as salespeople to oversell, overtalk. We're As humans, we're uncomfortable with silence, and we feel like if we fill up the air, um, that'll make us look smart.
Mm.
And it's really the secret to what to say when you don't know what to say is to say nothing. It
Interesting.
really is about the listening. So that course teaches you how to really be an active listener so that when you do talk, what you say actually matters.
Yeah. Yep. It's picking and choosing your words wisely.
Yeah. So that's the foundational improv class. That's like improv level 1 of
Yeah.
this is you have to have this foundation to then go forward. Then we use those concepts on how do we use that concept to turn around objections? How do we use that concept to I think why I'm effective in sales or successful in sales is that my discovery conversations are fluid and I just kind of let them roll without them being an
Mm-hmm.
interrogation.
Sure.
And eventually I'm able to get the questions answered that I need to pre-qualify or qualify someone. But again, it's the yes and the listening that helps me get there.
Yeah, for sure. So discovery is really important. I was actually going to ask you a little bit about that, but we don't have time today. So you know what that means?
I have to come back.
You'll have to come back,
Okay.
or we can discuss it when I'm on your show. Either way is fine. I mean, I just say no. So as you mentioned at the very beginning, you're also a sales coach. You're a director of coaching at Sales Gravy.
Mhm.
Who would you say has been your favorite coaching client so far?
Oh, that is so unfair.
Who would you say has been your favorite coaching client?
They're all my favorite.
Yeah,
That's
it's
like
interesting.
asking a parent which child is your favorite child.
And they all really have one, and they just can't say.
I mean, I've got every client is a favorite in some way.
Yes, guys, just in case you hadn't figured this out by now, I was a former client of Gina's for coaching and training, and yeah. So I'm gonna put you on the spot again
Oh
and
God.
get you to tell me what was how would you describe me from a coaching standpoint? Challenge, coachable, pleasant, efficient, proficient.
I think you're very coachable. I think I may have told you this last time on the episode
Yeah.
or to your face or on the side. I think initially I was annoyed by you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um
Which is
and I,
this is a normal reaction.
yeah, I gave you that feedback too. Like you do
Yeah.
what you want with it. But
Mm.
initially, sometimes you could rub people the wrong way. And
What?
I don't think you mean to do it. I think you think it's funny. And I'm speaking to you as a funny person because
Oh, I know. Yeah. As long as I'm the one laughing, I'm fine.
yeah, I mean, yeah. I've had people get on me that like, oh, you're so sarcastic, and you think like your humor offends people, and I'm like, well, it's not what I'm trying to do. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're offended by it, you think I'm like going out of my way to be offensive.
No, you do
So
it naturally.
exactly,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
you,
Just like me. That's right.
just like you. But once you like peel the onion of the big skip,
The more it stinks.
and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, and
So yeah, yes, and so for anybody out there who is considering coaching, uh, before we end the day, tell me what you would say that they need to be sure that they, I guess, describe to me what a coachable person is from a sales coach standpoint.
a coachable person is someone who is open to learning, who has some level of humility, who can be humble to a situation, who's willing to work and do
Mm,
the work. The coach is not going to do the work for you. Um, a coachable person is someone who really, really desires to get to the next level, right? So if you think about like in sports, right? What's the coach's job in sports, right? They also see what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. Our
hmm
job as a coach is to kind of draw out the best of you. I think that is probably one of my strong suits is I can see the strength in someone that they
Yep,
don't see. And
I would agree with that.
I think that's really important because it's hard for us to see our strengths. We see our weaknesses, no problem. Like I
Yeah,
know
everybody does. I mean,
yeah,
that's just natural.
but we don't see our strengths. And I think
Mm,
that's what a coach brings to the table of like shining a light on the strength and then how do we help you continue to leverage that?
I like it. I like it. So I know you've mentioned this earlier in the show, but let's go ahead and recap now. Where can my listeners find out more about you and or get in touch with you and or listen to your show?
So many ways, so many ways. If actually if you go to womenyourmotherwarnsyouabout.com, you will find everything. You will be able to connect with me,
Everything.
everything. You'll be able to connect with me there on the website, or you can, find that on social media. You can find Gina Trimarco all over social media. Be
Yeah,
careful,
she's
be
all over.
careful.
She's all
All
over.
over. Or Sales Gravy. If you go right to salesgravy.com or salesgravy.university if you want to see what courses I'm teaching. That's another place if you want to sign up for the what to say when you don't know what to
You
say.
should
So
definitely look into some of her classes, y'all. They're good. They're good.
yeah, and because we're on the Big Skip Energy podcast, if you go to salesgravy.university and you find one of the courses I'm teaching and you want to sign up, especially for what to say when you don't know what to say, or selling with stories, or creative selling. Those are probably my three key ones. Go there and then use the following code GINA 10 Gina 10, and you'll get some dollars back.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
All for spending time with us today. So, Gina, thank you so much for being on the show. Thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes.
Yes.
Can't
So
wait. Thank you.
we will talk to you again soon.
All right, Big Skip.
Bye bye now.
Bye bye.